decide to come, huh? All right. We can handle that.
Okay. Oh. What on earth?
I really want you to sit with me here. Okay.
Yeah. This is the sign.
Yeah.
Hannah Cahill.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, you guys keep moving around. Hannah Sorensen? Down there. Okay. All right. Write this stuff down. Hannah Sorensen. Hannah. Sitting right by each other. You guys just want to mess with me.
On the plan.
Cahill. Yeah, well, I'm going to mess with you. Keep switching around on me. I try to make a chart down there at the bottom.
At least there's only one Carissa here today.
That's true.
That was spelled different though.
Is it Kayla?
Yes.
All right.
What do you call this? What do you call it?
Hannah, Kayla.
Does anyone here call muskmelon other than me?
What?
Muskmelon?
Oh, I've heard of that.
Dr. Bonin, what do you call this fruit?
Well, it depends on which section of the produce department I'm in. Whether I'm in the cantaloupe section or the muskmelon section.
Thank you. I call it muskmelon. They told me I was crazy.
Why is it called?
That's what I grew up
Muskmelon?
calling it.
Why is it called cantaloupe? Sounds like antelope. It doesn't run across the range.
It's fruit. For the cool kids. Because
That's what I grew up calling it. It was muskmelon.
Because she's from the country, right?
It's true.
Okay, which sounds more civilized? Cantaloupe or muskmelon? Yeah,
We're uncivilized, Dr. Bonin.
that's right. Farmers are uncivilized. I don't know why. I think we take pride in our lack of civilization.
It's true.
I know how to hold my hand to drink a cup of tea with my little pinky sticking out. I'm just not about to do it. Carissa Schofield. All right. Kayla. Carissa. Cherish Palmer. I marked you here already.
Thank you.
I'll make a little name tag for you. I'll work around this stuff.
It's just smell good inside.
All right. 2 empty seats, and you go by Matt, don't you?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Oh!
Matt May. There we go.
That hurt my soul.
Yeah.
Now what's going on? Now what's going on, ladies?
What?
Now what's going on?
She hit her head.
Oh,
It was a braiding being a little kid today.
All right. Let's see. I have 12s by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh. Kayla. 5, 6. Oh. And that video's been going all this time? My goodness. Sorry to the online people that we're just trying to keep track of things here. And I'm on page 123. What is an information processing model? How does information processing work?
What page did you say that was?
123. How does information processing work? A stimuli from the 5 senses. Let's see, let's take one of your 5 senses. Touch. Rub it across the table. Does that feel good or what? Reach down and rub it across the floor. Oh, that grosses me out. Okay, rub it across the chair. That's about halfway in between. Information, stimuli from the 5 senses come into the sensory register. Stimuli that matter to us are passed on to the working memory. So, do you remember how it felt to touch the table, to touch the floor, to touch the chair? You go, no, it didn't matter. It just was there. I sensed it, and now it's gone. And if you wanted to sense it again, what would you have to do? Put your hand back on the table. Oh, it's coming back to me. In fact, I still remember how it felt because I made a comment about it. So that kind of took it from just being a registry into my memory. But then when I touched it again, it was like, whoa, that's much more intense than what I remember because it was starting to fade in my memory. You guys like this stuff? What's going on inside our heads while we're actually sensing stuff around us? We do. Well, do you understand, as a teacher, it's important to become aware of this because you know what's going on with your kids. Right now, if we had a room full of 3rd graders, they would be going bonkers about the big snowflakes outside. And they would be turning around and looking at every chance. Oh, Kayla's already into her 3rd grade mode over there. She's going, yeah, it's fun to look out there and see those. And it's just like, I'm going, whatever's going on in this room, the attraction of that visual stimulus outside is so powerful. We're going to have to probably work harder at getting them to take in other stimuli. And then working memory tries to make sense of the new stimuli. It does, the new information, and link it to what we already know. So what does this remind me of? That's almost like rubbing my hand on glass. See what I'm doing? I'm taking that information clear inside and connecting it with previous information I have. What does this feel like? I don't have anything to connect that to. I wonder if it's because I don't make a habit of walking around and feeling the floor to see what it feels like. It's just not something I do on a regular basis, so I don't have a kind of a registry in there for it. So it'll probably evaporate rather quickly and get lost, but I'll probably remember that table thing for a long time because that is really, wasn't it? Rub your hand on the table again. Are you having as much fun with that as I am? Or is it just that it's just, I don't know, I'm the only one that has tips of my fingers are that sensitive. You guys? I don't need to pay money to go to Worlds of Fun. I just sit around and rub my hands on tables and stuff like that.
That would be good.
Yeah.
You got to enjoy the simple things in life. Number 4, if new information is determined to be useful, we store it in our long-term memory. Now, would this be useful? I don't know, but it sure is pleasant. Aha, guess what I just did? Since I have a registry for pleasant stuff in there, and since that was pleasant, I'll remember that for some time. The floor thing is just about evaporated. And the reason I use evaporated is because that's kind of what happens to it. It kind of gets a little fuzzy and a little foggy, and then you just can't remember what it was like. So you have to go back and kind of reactivate that stimuli to get it back in your head and do some stuff with it. And executive processes are kind of like commands a person makes to his or her brain. And a lot of those commands, we don't even know we're making them. Like, for example, when I said, rub your hands on the table. Whoa, doesn't that feel cool? Then I said, rub it on the floor. And you go, I have not rubbed my hands on the floor. There are germs on the floor. People's feet are on the floor. And I'm just not doing that. So, see, what's happened is your executive processes are telling you that he just told me to do something that I can't do because that's filthy. That floor is filthy. I'm thinking, no, it's not filthy. I mean, yeah, people might have walked on it, but that doesn't make it filthy. Well, and listen, I hear it all the time. My wife we come out of church on Sunday, and the first thing we do is go get something to eat for breakfast from McDonald's, that 2 for $4 breakfast sandwich thing, and she pulls out this little squirt bottle and goes, psh, psh, psh. Any of you do that? She has me rub my hands together. I'm thinking, Nina, the Egg McMuffin is in a wrapper. I'm not even going to touch it. She goes, I don't care. It's just germs everywhere. I don't know why we don't use fist bumps or elbow bumps at church instead of shaking hands. Anybody agree with her? A little bit?
They do fist bumps.
At your church, they do fist.
Not my church, but I've heard of a church that does fist
Yeah,
bumps.
it's because we're germ conscious people, and we're just saying, no, there's stuff going around. We just don't want to pick it up, and it's like, hey, that's just her personality. And you understand, her executive processes will pick up on that stuff in a way that mine won't. I'll be out working on something out in the barn, and she'll come out and say, you doing okay? And I say, yeah. She goes, you want anything? And she said, I brought you a bottle of water. I'm going, that's great. I said, could I have a peanut butter sandwich? And she goes, you're going to eat it out here? Like, what, where the wind's blowing dust and stuff around? What's the worst thing that can happen?
A little bit of dirt on it.
A little dust gets on my sandwich, and I eat the dust along with the sandwich. Does that gross anybody out? Grosses my wife out. She just can't understand how I could do that. I just think, well, different executive processes are at work that have to do with a lot of our personality, but a lot of it's the way that we've raised too, our environment and that kind of thing. But if we determine that this information is useful or comfortable or preferable, or if somehow we've decided I want to keep this stuff, then we take it into our long-term memory, and usually connect it with other stuff that's in our long-term memory, so we can kind of this feels a little bit like some other stuff I've touched, and that's a pleasant feeling, and I'll keep that one around. But rubbing my finger across the blade of a knife, nope, not even going to think about it. Don't have a sensation department for that because I don't want to mess with it. Page 124, perception involves mental interpretations of the stimuli. A mental interpretation of the stimuli. So rub your hands across the table again and give me a mental interpretation of that stimuli. Can anyone do that? Do you have okay, what do you mean, a mental interpretation? Okay, I'll give you a mental interpretation of that stimuli for me. That feels smooth. You follow me? That's my mental interpretation. That's, in a sense, all it is just here was the stimuli, and this is mentally what I registered or what I thought about that stimuli. Now, would the rest of you like to share a thought about that stimuli?
It's cold. It's cold.
There. Cold. How many people said cold? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I better feel that again. See, I mean, now see, watch what happens. See, watch what's going on here. All 6 of you say cold, and all I was thinking was smooth. Huh. You guys are right. It is kind of cold in here, isn't it? Are the heaters not turned on in this room? Is it cold in here?
It's a little chilly.
No?
Not
Okay.
terrible.
Is it cold in here?
Don't ask Matt.
No. A little bit. Kaylee,
Oh my heavens gracious.
is it cold in here?
It is a little cold in here.
A little? Yes.
A little.
Matt? Man's wearing
He's-
shorts.
That's why I said don't ask him.
Don't
Don't
even ask him. Where are you from? Here.
He's just crazy.
You a football player?
Yep, he hit his head one too many times.
Yeah. Now see, she said, now see, watch, stimulus. You a football player? And what's her registry? What's her mental, what was that I called that? Her
Mental
perception. Hit his head too often. I'm saying, see, no, football players sit out in the cold and freeze to death and get so used to it, it's like it's no big deal to them. The rest of us, we don't even want to go out in the cold. Think about it, or bundle up and try to stay warm. Okay, so you understand what we mean by perception involves the interpretation of the stimuli. It's just what's going on in my head. And the fact that all of you had a different thought in your head than I did made me go back and re-examine the stimuli because of social pressure to think, did I miss something? And I'm like, yeah, it is kind of cold, but see, understand how I'm doing this, what's going on in my mind? But it's still very smooth. And I don't mind it being cold because it's just cool feeling something that smooth. So you can imagine why I buy all those little soft fuzzy blankets for Christmas for everybody. I just want the world to touch those soft fuzzy blankets. Maybe I should cut one up and bring it in here and let all of you touch a piece of it to see what I'm talking about.
Cut it out. Yeah, don't cut it out. Just do one.
Just bring one here and let you touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but once you touch it, you'll kind of want a little piece just to sit here. Now, and see, watch what happens. If I did cut it up, okay, if I brought a bunch of those in and said, okay, everybody gets one of these, can you understand in school, you wrap that little blanket around you, and you're feeling all that, and all of a sudden, this fuzzy little warm thing is so stimulating, I can't even hear what the teacher's talking about. Our little daughter in grade school had a teacher who they would read stories and she couldn't answer the questions, and the teacher said, I don't know what's wrong with your daughter. We sit right here in our little reading circle and we read the stories, and then I ask questions about it and she can't answer them. And she came home and she said, Dad, what's wrong with me? And I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with you. I said, let's read the story here. And she understood the story. So then I went to school and looked in the classroom. Okay, you know what the teacher did when she read these stories to these little chippers? She had a corner with a chair and a big fuzzy rug, and all the little chippers gathered around and sat right next to their best friends and held each other's hands and arms and snuggled up to each other while they're listening. Okay, remember the intelligence thing we did? This is my daughter who's highest on interpersonal intelligence. So what happens when she's on the floor next to her two little best friends, rubbing shoulders with them and feeling this cool carpeting? She can't hear what the teacher's saying because she's being so overstimulated by all the social stuff going on around her.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. Think about that. And this teacher was a good teacher. I just think that maybe she didn't take this ed psych class. where she could learn all this stuff and say, I need to be aware of what kind of stimuli are coming at these kids and how it's going to have a dynamic that affects what's going on in the classroom. Attention, it says on page 124, is a limited resource. You can only pay so much attention for so long, and you can only pay attention to so many things at one time till something starts to dominate your attention, and other things have to take second place, or third or fourth. And I know the little children come into your classroom with one thing on their mind. I want to hang on every word my teacher says for the whole time we're in here. That's just not the way we're wired. So then you have to say, okay, I have to tune in to what's going on with these kids' perceptions, and what kind of things are stimulating them, and that they paying attention to what I have to say that's a limited resource. They can only do that so long before we have to have a change of pace. Page 125, there are several ways to gain and hold students' attention. No, that's something else. So, what are several ways to gain and hold students' attention on page 125? Does he say?
This is important. He talks about using phrases, like cueing phrases that will get their attention. Be like, hey, I need to know this.
So maybe you need to Google some ways to gain and hold students' attention. I think I did that somewhere. Somehow in the back of my mind, I think I did one of those someplace and didn't bring it with me. One way to hold information in your working memory is to think about it or say it over and over and over and over again. Did any of you ever get in trouble with your teachers for something when you were younger? Do you remember getting in trouble for doing something?
Not a whole lot.
What were you doing that got you in trouble? Or what did you do that got you in trouble?
Argued.
Argue.
Surely not.
Argue. The teacher would say something, and I would just automatically disagree.
Mine was always talking with other people.
And so let's see, what could you do? What could your mother have done to help you improve your grade? Because you know if you argue with the teacher, your grade goes down. What? Oh, she was your teacher? Your mother?
Oh yeah, my mom was.
Your mother was your teacher. So what could you, now, knowing what you know here, what could you have done? You said every time, I would say whenever I have school, I would say, don't argue with the teacher, don't argue with the teacher, don't argue with the teacher, don't argue with the teacher. I could even make myself a little card. I could put DAWTT on my hand with a marker. And what would that stand for? Don't argue with the teacher. When I read that book that said husbands should tell their wives they love them every day. Like Matt, it's like they forget. You know, I told her I loved her.
I'll let you know if anything
Asked her to marry
changes.
her. And if I change my mind, I'll let you know, kind of stuff. But it's like, no, she wants to hear it every day. And I'm thinking, what? They forget? But the book said, it's just the way God made them. I'm thinking, what? It's just like that what? The words evaporate, and she needs to hear them again. I think, well, okay, stimuli kind of stuff, so I'll try it. But see, because that didn't strike a fancy with me, so to speak, because it's like, that didn't resonate with me, what did I do? Put on a little piece of paper. TYWTYLH. And that way I have this little code going that nobody knows what I'm doing. I just look at the letters and I immediately know. Tell your wife that you love her. So, what happens? I get home and I go, oh, I go, Nina. She goes, what? I said, I love you. She goes, I love you too, Tom. And so then I'm headed out the door, and I'm going, oh, there's my little note. Tell your wife you love her. Do you write it on your hand? Every time you look at it, you see it? And I found out that, does this surprise anyone? After I wrote myself a note and did that long enough, it kind of became automatic. Because it was so rewarding to her, and it was just like, hey, I think I've reprogrammed my brain. I think I've reprogrammed my way of thinking. And I don't have to make sense out of it or examine it. It's just the book said it's a good idea, and he was right, and I'll do it because it makes her feel good. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I didn't say it for a while. So I do these awful experiments. Like when I talk to my daughters on the phone, and at the end we always say, what do we always say? What do you always say at the end of the phone call? I love you. And so she'll say, I love you, Dad. And I'll just sit there and she goes, Dad? Dad, are you still there? I said, yeah, I love you too, girl. Have a good day. Isn't that disgusting? It's just like, I'm wondering, is there still this stuff after all these years? Because to me, it's just a strange phenomenon.
See, yeah, I'm with you there.
Since I didn't grow up with it, it wasn't part of my existence, but I've made it a part of my existence. And my wife and daughters seem to enjoy it. And so do my grandsons now, too. I mean, I have 4 grandsons, and I treat them pretty much the way I treated my daughters. I give them hugs and tell them I love them, and they hug me and tell me they love me. And they seem to enjoy it. In fact, part of it is thinking, maybe that'll make them better fathers and husbands if I kind of teach them a little bit about how doing that, because that's not an unmanly thing to do. Okay, enough of that. Let's keep moving here. Page 126. When you stop a lesson and ask students if they have any questions, you are doing what? What did it say on page 126? What are you doing when you do that? When you stop a lesson and ask students if they have any questions, you are also giving them time to think and mentally rehearse what they've just learned. Is that why he's running through his math lesson in the morning and he goes, any questions? And you have that math class? Any questions? You see what I'm doing? Can you see where, as we look at this stuff in the book, do you find yourself thinking about some of your teachers and saying, oh, is that why they're doing that? Or thinking about teachers you've had in the past and say, oh, is that why they did that? Because what's happening? What's happening when you stop a lesson and ask students if they have any questions? What are you doing?
Opportunity to think.
You're giving them an opportunity to think. And what else?
Process what they've learned.
And mentally rehearse or process what they've just been told or what they've just heard or what they've just learned. Page 126, you can memorize a list of stuff by organizing it according to a familiar pattern. See page 126. Well, isn't that cute? I don't have to have my wife write down the grocery list anymore. I'll just remember it by breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Do you see the strategy on that page? Nope. That's not going to happen. I'm going to pull out an index card when I leave here, and I'll say, Nina, I'm going to stop at a store on the way home so I don't have to get back out in this weather. Do you need anything? And I'm not going to write it down in categories of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm just going to write it down as she gives it to me. Why? Because I don't have to. What are we talking about here? I don't have to memorize this list because I have it written down.
I try and write mine down like in
location to where stuff is at. Like try and list all the things that will be by each other
Mm-hmm.
together, and as I like walk through the store, what will be like the order.
Do this, do this, do
Yeah.
this. And I just use these index cards. When I run out of these things, I go to Walmart and buy 2 more big stacks of them. Because I just use them all the time for all kinds of things. Even for like today. Hannah, Kayla, Carissa, Cherish, and Matt. Look at that. Just put them out here. I don't know why my mind was going fuzzy today, but in my first hour class, I said, I'll see you on Monday. And then somebody said, we don't have class on Wednesday and Friday? I'm going, oh, this isn't Friday, is it? This is Monday. I'll see you on Wednesday. Now, probably somebody's not going to show up on Wednesday, and they'll say, well, you said I'd see you on Monday, so I thought your class was canceled. No, I'm just an old guy who's losing it. And I'm aware of it because I study this stuff and I teach this stuff. So I'm going to write a lot of stuff down. Do you find that's helpful to write stuff down?
Yes.
My wife doesn't like writing stuff down. Because here's what she says. She says, yeah, Tom, she said, I made a list this morning of stuff that I want you to get from the store, but I laid it down someplace and I can't find it.
I'll do that too.
And I'm saying, well, let's reconstruct it. Just think of it again. She goes, okay, but then it was just a waste of time to make the list. I said, no, it'll probably help you think about it as we think through it. But she just doesn't like lists. And I do. So it's just like, hey, we just work this thing out together. And here's what that means. Here's what that means. I'll ask her if there's anything she needs in the store, and she'll tell me. And then I'll go into the store, and I'll go to one store. I know when I leave here, I'm going to Kohl's and Aldi's for sure. But then when I leave, I'll call her and say, so did you think of anything else? She said, yeah, I did. I was hoping you would call. And so then she tells me what else she thought of. So we just learn to work through this stuff. It's like you develop these mindsets that help you work through all this stuff. Well, what's the next one? Page 127. The more a person knows about something, the better able a person is to absorb and organize new information. Did you catch what they said? The more you know about something, the better able you are to absorb and organize new information. So if you already know something about what I'm talking about, like when I said the other day about, are you all familiar with those 8 kinds of intelligence? And I got this blank look from a whole bunch of people. So I knew if I started talking about it, didn't have enough background information to really connect with what I was saying. So I find this cute little 1-page handout. I give it to you. We talk through it a little bit. And now, okay, I'll ask the question again. So do any of you know anything about Gardner's 8 different kinds of intelligence? Do any of you know anything about it? Who knows something about Gardner's 8 kinds of intelligence? Let's see your hands. Raise your hand if you know something.
I read about.
One, a little bit, okay, yes, 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 yes. So I didn't ask you if you're going to take a test over it, you know, if you could list all 8 of them, but you know something about it. You have some connection to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I ask you, of the 8 kinds of intelligence, which kind do you probably have the most of? Could you answer that question? Which kind do I have the most of?
Mathematics.
How many of you knew that mathematics was the one that I have the most of? Well, you people do listen to what I say anymore. How cool is that? Which kind was yours? Hannah? Do you remember? Okay. Oh, you got it there for? Hannah, what about you? Which kind was yours?
Interpersonal.
Interpersonal? Kayla, what about you? What?
Interpersonal.
Interpersonal?
Yeah.
Carissa?
I still have like words.
Linguist.
That one.
That one?
Yeah.
That linguistic
Yeah.
stuff? Cherish?
Mine is probably, I mean, I have like several that are pretty close, but probably maybe either linguistic or musical.
Linguistic or musical, Matt?
Like visual and kinesthetic.
Visual and kinesthetic, okay. And see, that's where, and now we can have a conversation about it that we couldn't have had before because you didn't have enough information. So basically, the more a person knows about something, the better able they are to absorb and organize new information. So what's the flip side of that coin? The less people know about something, the less able they are to absorb and organize new information. So if you give some students a bunch of new information that they should be able to comprehend and they're just not catching it, what do you conclude? They're not paying attention. Not necessarily. What from this stuff here that we're looking at in this textbook, what could you conclude? They don't have enough background information to be able to catch this stuff. They don't have stuff in there to hang this stuff on. So I'm going to have to go back and help build that framework that they need to hook all this stuff to. People store information and learning strategies and long-term memory. And they have three kinds of long-term memory. Did you know that? You have three big compartments in your mind. And three categories of memories. Episodic memories, semantic memories, and procedural memories. Did you know that? Now, think of those words, episodic, semantic, and procedural. What kind of memories would go in procedural?
Things that you learn by doing a process.
Step by step.
Yeah.
Step by step, ways of doing things. What kind of stuff would go into your semantic? Oh no, episodic. Episodic, what does that sound like?
Small visuals. You just remember.
Episodes, how many episodes are there going to be? So what does he say that is? Your mental movies.
Like memories?
Yeah, like how many episodes of Little House on the Prairie do you have? You don't have any. How many episodes of Veggie Tales do you have?
None.
Wait, how many episodes of Little House on the Prairie do we have?
Yeah, like
memorized?
no, just do you have at home to watch?
Every single one of them.
Every one of them? So do we at our house.
Wait, did I hear that right? I have.
That's okay, and see, so all of these, all of the movies, all of the stuff, all of the events, all the things that happen, and what you said visuals, didn't you? Pictures, because that's what they are. But those episodes are like moving pictures. They could be like a photograph album too, but it's like those movies is the idea that so you have a picture in your mind of what happened the first time you rode a bicycle, what happened the first time you poured your own glass of milk in the kitchen, what happened the first time you ate beets.
I never did.
Oh no, never had a beat.
How could a person,
Never.
Hannah, how could a person look at beets and not want to eat them? I mean, something that brilliant and bright
They're,
in color.
they're so colorful. Like
Yeah, they're so
orange.
colorful. Why wouldn't you want to put those in your mouth? I mean,
They stink.
I mean, people in here went bonkers over those goofy fruit snacks that are full of who knows what. And it's like beets look a lot prettier than fruit snacks.
We should bring some beets to class.
No, thank you.
I should bring some beets to class here and pass them around. We all get a little chunk of beet to eat. Now, have you tasted them, Carissa?
No, but I've smelled them and they're nasty.
Okay. Did you hear what she just said? She smelled them. See, we gotta help each other adjust our minds in here. Okay, have any of you smelled cabbage cooking?
Yeah.
Okay, it smells awful. And that's why I wouldn't eat it. And guess what? Here's what a guy said to me. I still remember the guy who served it to me, he said, Tom, it doesn't taste like it smells.
Does it smell like that? Then?
I just remember if you cook it
And I said,
I like fresh peppers.
and I said, let me try it. And I took some and put it in my mouth, and I'm going, whoa, this tastes good.
I like fresh cabbage.
I'm just telling you, you guys have to open your minds up to new experiences. But can you see where, just if this is the way we are as adults, look at these poor little kids that come into our room that have already made their minds up about stuff. And and some of you are probably going to get someone just like Hannah who's just going to argue with you about everything. And see, Hannah would probably say, well, it's because my mother was my teacher. But I'll bet she would argue with anybody who was out there. it's just my personality.
This is where you say, no, I wouldn't, to prove your point.
And what'll be cool about it is when the little chipmunk comes into Hannah's class who wants to argue about anything, all the other teachers are so glad that little chipper's gone from their class, and Hannah goes, "Come on in, I understand you completely." That's why I think God wants children to have experience with a great variety of teachers, so they have somebody that they connect with. And all those little kids who argue, Hannah, they're going to think you're the neatest teacher they ever had, and they're going to love you for the rest of your life. I mean, they just are. They just will. They'll remember you. What's your favorite age group to teach?
Probably the younger elementary.
Those younger elementary kids. You get them started in life, and they think you're the best thing ever happened to them for the rest of their life.
Everyone always remembers their kindergarten teacher.
I had a little kid that was struggling in math, and his parents called me, and I went to his house, and I helped him get unstuck in math when he was just a little kid in grade school. And he's a grown, successful man in Maryland. And every time we go out there and visit his family, he says, "You know, Uncle Tom, I still remember what you taught me in math." And here's what he says. He said, "I'm able to do what I do today because of what you did for me back there in third grade." I'm going, whoa. Now, it's not all that, but you just understand, these little kids, they latch onto you when you help them turn the corner and start getting this stuff figured out. And the more you understand how the mind works, the better you're going to be at doing that. Okay, so we got procedural, we got episodics, the movies, semantics. Semantics. Have you ever heard someone say, it's just a matter of semantics?
Mm-hmm.
You ever heard that? Okay, what is semantics? What's the book say on page 127?
Contains facts.
Facts, concepts, principles. It's the words we use.
Okay, yeah. What page?
And it's the labels we use for these facts and these concepts and these principles and these rules and these problem-solving skills and these learning strategies. And those are basically the three categories of long-term memory. Page 128. Images are important in episodic memory. Episodic memories get mixed together. They do? Yeah. I've got my little house on the prairie and my Veggie Tales. And when they get in my mind, they all start. I've got a Veggie Tale running after Paul when he's trying to get away from the wolves, telling him that it's okay, they won't bother you, just drop the rabbits. It's like Veggie Tales weren't there. Well, it seemed like they were, because in our minds, we start taking all these little episodes we have, and they get kind of mixed together. Like, sometimes you might say, yeah, I remember the first time I rode a bicycle, I fell and skinned my knee, and it just hurt so much. I said, I'm not going to do that anymore. And your mom goes, no, that was what you said when you fell out of the tree. The same day you rode the bicycle. You fell out of the tree and skinned your knee. You didn't fall off your bicycle and skin your knee. You understand how in our heads that stuff can kind of get a little jumbled? So just be aware of that. So when someone wants to when someone wants to argue about semantics, what do these words mean? I mean, I have had adults going at each other over what a word means. And I'm going, let's get the dictionary and look it up. And we get the dictionary and look it up, and guess what the dictionary says? There are 4 uses of this word. And does this surprise you? The 2 people who are arguing, one person is using the 2nd definition, and the other one is using the 4th definition. Well, okay, but my definition is 2nd. I say, so they don't rank them in order of importance. They just simply give 4 definitions, and they put them there. Well, mine's probably used that way more often. Well, because that phenomenon occurs more often in life, but that doesn't make it better. It's like, hey, there's still this other way to use the word. Well, the word shouldn't be used those other ways. It should only be used this one way. Why is that? Because those other ways confuse me. Well, there you go. Learn to expand your mind a little bit and stretch it. And when you hear little kids carrying on conversations, hopefully from just reading this material and working through this class, you will start to say, I see what's going on inside their heads. Because this class, I'm telling you, the stuff in this book is enough to let you see inside little kids' heads. Okay. Let's see. Semantic memories involve networks of concepts that enable students to understand new information and incorporate new information into their existing framework. So what you kind of want to do when you're talking to kids about this stuff you're teaching is there some way I can latch on to something they already know that's in their head and connect this stuff to it? And if not, then you say, then we're going to have to form a whole new department in the mind, and that's going to take a while for that to happen. And it's going to take longer to teach this concept because they don't have anything in their head I can latch it onto, I can hook it up to. Page 129, procedural memory is the ability to recall how to do something. And I don't know about you, but isn't it amazing that once you learn to, okay, how long has it been since you've ridden a bicycle? A long time? But if you got on a bicycle, you would be amazed at how quickly your ability to ride a bicycle comes back. It's just our mind. It's a humongous gift from God. That so once, see, this is why I work hard at teaching people how to do things, because I know once they get that how to do it down, once they get that procedural thing fixed in their mind, it's theirs. Even if they have trouble finding it, it's still theirs, and it can come back and help them in the future. Page 130, several factors contribute to long-term memory. The degree to which the material is learned. Do I learn it just a little bit? Did I just have a cursory learning of Gardner's 8 kinds of intelligence the other day? No, we spent some time. I could have just given the handout and left it with you, and you would just read it. No, we spent some time talking about it, trying to make sense out of the different kinds. Oh, I came back to it today. That's one of the things this book talks about, is that you come back and say, I'll bring it up again, I'll bring it up again, and I'll bring it up again, and it just goes back, and it intensifies the degree to which the material is learned. 2, active involvement contributes to long-term memory. And what do we do in here to get actively involved in this stuff? What am I doing to actively involve you in the process of learning the stuff in this book?
Talk about it.
We talk about it.
Real life examples.
We spend time talking about it. That's a valuable activity. And for adults, that's a very efficient activity. With little children, you probably have to do more of the hands-on kind of stuff. But with adults, you can do a lot of talking about it. Field work. What is field work?
Getting out and doing it.
Getting out and doing it. processing information involved in field work. What is that? I go out and do something, and then I think about what happened when I did it. Have any of you taken a PE class where you learned how to play to do a certain activity? Did anyone take a PE class called bowling?
We did a bowling unit.
You did it, in it? Have you taken a PE class called volleyball? Basketball? Kickball?
We had units like we had wiffle ball, we had aerobics, we had yoga, we had Pilates. We
So,
had Thai
have
bow.
any of you had someone say, here's the way you play, or here's the way you bowl?
Mhm. Yes.
Have you had anyone say to you, here's the way you hit a golf ball?
Yes.
Ah, we remember that one? Yeah, because the checklist for what you have to do to hit the golf ball right, put your elbows in, cross your hands. I mean, it's like ding, 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 ding. It fills up a whole page, doesn't it? The list of what you have to do. But if you go down the checklist for golf and then you put the ball out there and you bring the club back and you whack it, that was a good one. You look and the ball takes off and then it goes up and starts to soar and just keeps going. It's like, whoa, that was a good hit. You've never had that happen? Well, go get a book on hitting a golf ball and just keep going out there and do some field work and see. Now watch what happens. I read how to do it. I went out and did the field work, and then when I got one of those things where the ball just took off, and then I saw it start to elevate, and I thought, wow, now that's what happens when you run. See, now that's this number 4, processing information involved in field work. That's what happens when you run down the checklist before you whack the golf ball. And then number 5, giving names to concepts. What did I call it when you swing the club and hit the ball? Whacking the golf ball. What did I say it does when you get a good hit and it takes off? It soars. You guys need to do more of this stuff. Your lives seem to be somewhat mundane. Oh. That's what I loved about when I came to Calvary. I took a class on bowling, golf, badminton, tennis,
Love badminton.
all those different sports. And we had little books you had to read on each of them and take a test over it, then go out in the field and do it. And see, hopefully you think, you know what? Can you see how all that stuff they made me learn in PE class, even if I don't use some of it, it taught me something on how to teach little kids to do stuff.
Mhm.
Give them the direct instruction that we'll talk about in the next chapter, and then take them out and have them practice this stuff and give them some field work, and then give names to the concepts and give meaning to the concepts. Whacking that golf ball. And it's like, why'd you say whack? Because that's kind of the way it sounds when you get a good hit. Whack. And why'd you say soar? Because have you ever seen a ball take off and it just starts, the little dimples in it, catches the wind and starts going up before it starts coming down again? When I saw a golf ball do that, I thought, wow, I want to hit some more of those. And number 7, attend to details. And what will happen if I do those 7 things? Page 130. What will happen on page 130 if I do those 7 things? You don't know. But it sure looks like fun. Top of page 130. It will enhance long-term memory. Now, you know what? Because when I looked at page 130 here and I'm going, I don't see a list of 7 things in
No,
there.
I don't either. That's why I was confused.
Let's see, what was the first one on my list? Okay, look up here under factors that enhance long-term memory. Look at that first paragraph. What's in there what's a factor that enhances long-term memory? Oh, it's not even the first paragraph, second paragraph. Several factors contribute to long-term retention. One, not surprisingly, is,
The degree to which students have learned the material.
oh, that's the first one on my list. And he goes on and talks about it. Then what's the second one? Next paragraph. Instructional strategies that do what?
Actively involve students in lessons contribute to long-term retention.
You know what? See, I go through this stuff, I read this stuff, I make these notes, and then I come in here and talk about it, and then I think, where did I get that? But have you picked up from the handouts I've given you what I've been doing? My preferred style of learning when I read a book is to make a list. Make a list, make a list, make a list. Because this list of 7 things gives me something I can check it off, so to speak, and say, if I'm doing these 7 things, I'm going to contribute to the child's long-term memory. And if you don't get to keep these books after December, you might want to go through here and jot some of this stuff down from these paragraphs and put it in an abbreviated form or a list form, if that helps, just to say, this is useful information. Okay, now we'll turn the page. Page 131. How the brain works. How does the brain work? Oh, it's on page 134. Obviously, I'm not that interested in the brain because I skipped all those pictures. Just kept going. Most researchers believe the brain remains adaptable throughout life. So what that means is my little chippers can adapt their thinking to the new information I'm giving them. Children, oh, and that also means that as potential teachers, you can encounter new information in this book and you can do what? You can adapt your thinking to embrace some new ways of doing things when you interact with little children. Children who receive intensive tutoring in reading develop brain structures like those of proficient readers. So if you get a little kid who hasn't had the prerequisite skills to be a good reader, what can you do to turn them into a good reader? Now see, some teachers will say it's too late. They're just going to be non-readers for the rest of their lives. And you say, nope, I read it on page 134. If I tutor this little child in reading, I will actually help him develop brain structures that are identical to those of proficient readers. Is that good to know? Because there's a whole lot of folks out there. Remember what we said in that last chapter? There can be that self-fulfilling prophecy where we can start to write the kids off, and so we don't help them, when in fact, here's a kid who comes from a terrible background, but they don't know any of this stuff, and it's like, doesn't matter. I can take this little kid that doesn't have all these skills, and I can start tutoring them one-on-one, teaching them how to read, and their brains will change. Page 136. Some types of learning are easier than others. You go, well, that's obvious. Yeah, but I just thought you ought to know it. You go, well, I knew that. Yeah, okay. Are some things easier for you than for others? Are some types of learning easier for you than other types of learning? Do all of us struggle with the same things?
No.
So what's going to happen? I've got a room full of children here, and they're all unique individuals. So what's easy for one will be a challenge for another one. And I'm going to have to just do some accommodating here to give these kids the individual help they need. Page 137, giving students time to consolidate and rehearse new learning. How do I give students time to do that? Use simple graphic pictures to reinforce learning. Allow students to act out concepts. Did all of you do acting out when you were younger? Or did the teacher call acting out the same as acting up? Did you act things out? Like if, let's take some biblical concept we're trying to teach these little kids. Like being kind to one another. Be ye kind. Do you all know that little song? Be ye kind one to another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, has forgiven you. You don't know that?
I know the verse. Ephesians 4:30.
Yeah.
30.
Doodly doo. Ephesians 4:32. None of you know the
I don't
song?
know the song.
Oh, that's because my daughters learned the song in Pioneer Girls. And Pioneer Girls doesn't exist anymore. And Pioneer Girls used to take a lot of these significant children's verses and put them to little sing-songy tunes. And our daughters learned a lot of them singing stuff that way. You might want to try singing some verses once in a while. You might want to even let some of your little children take Bible verses and make up songs that we can sing, that we can use to sing the verse. You could put on a program at school. The kids who are musical come up with the tunes and the rest of them learn to sing them. If you saw somebody being kind to one another, what would you see them doing? Here's a room full of little children, and here's a little child who's being kind to somebody else. Do you see that little movie? Oh, look, there's a little child being kind to another little child. What's on that? What did you see that little child doing? Nothing comes to mind. A blank tape. Well, the next time you see somebody, let's see, when's the next time you're going to see a crowd of people? In the cafeteria, right? When you go to eat again?
Mm-hmm.
So while you're eating, just sit there and look around the cafeteria and say, let's see if I can see a little movie of somebody being kind to somebody else in here. And then, once I kind of get a picture of what it means to see somebody being kind, then I can have my children act it out. Practice doing it. I could give one child, okay, if I wanted to do it with you guys, I could give one of you a bag full of peach applesauce. And another one, a bag full of fruit snacks. And another one, a bag full of little cans of tomato juice. Apple juice. Apple juice. Okay, I got to find something everybody's going to like it here. Now, what would be a kind thing that, that Matt could do since he has the bag of applesauce?
He can give it to us.
He could pass it around and share one with everybody, right? So I could give him that, and then he has the applesauce, and Cherish has the spoons, and so we just all practice being kind to one another. And that's what it means to have kids act this stuff out. Learning to use the words may I, please, and thank you. Interference increases forgetting. What does that mean?
You say it again?
I want the kids to act out being kind. if they go, well, I'm not really being kind, I'm just passing this stuff out because you told me to. Okay, this little kid has a heart problem and a head problem, and he's going to have trouble learning the concept of kindness because he just doesn't like being kind to other people. And what are all of you going to say when Matt comes by and gives you a container of applesauce?
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And what are you going to say to them, Matt?
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And you understand? So I got this little kid. Can you believe this? In junior high, I've got this little kid that I say, when I call your name in class, I want you to answer roll by saying, yes, sir. And so I go down the list and I call her by his name and I say, Hannah, and she says,
Yes, sir.
and Hannah,
Yes, sir.
and Kayla,
Yes, sir.
and Carissa,
Yes, sir.
and Cherish,
Yes, sir.
and Matt.
Yes, sir.
Well, here's Joe sitting right here on the other side of Matt. And I say, Joe, he says, here. And I go, I'll tell you again what I expect. I want you to answer roll by calling yes, sir. And if you don't say yes, sir, I don't mark you present. And I go, Joe? And he goes, I said I was here. Are you deaf? And I pick up my pencil, pull out my little death card. And I write down, Joe is going to die. And I wrote down what he did. And I said, Joe, you need to understand something real quickly here. If you don't say yes, sir, when I call your name this next time, I'm going to call your parents and they're going to come and take you home and you will be expelled from this school. And I said, so I'll call your name one more time. I said, Joe, and he got a tear in his eye, running down his cheek, and he said, yes, sir. And I was so thankful he did that. And then after school, I called his parents and told them what happened. And guess what they told me? He's been going through a rebellious stage in life. And I'm glad you did that. And then the mother said, but would you have really put him out of school and sent him home? You thought I was a nice guy, didn't you? Have you read the chapter in this book yet where Slavin talks about having control in the classroom and how important it is to a healthy learning environment? I would have put him out of school because he needs to know that when a teacher gives him instructions, you do what the teacher says or you die. There are other places you can go to school. It's a privilege to come to this Christian school. So you just forfeited the privilege if you don't want to get with the program and do what's right. And the word spread throughout school. When Mr. Bonan calls your name, say, yes, sir, or you'll die. I wasn't very popular that first year, but I didn't go up to Peoria to run a popularity contest. I went up to help them start a junior high and a senior high that would take elementary kids and move them on to become successful adults. Okay. Wow. What else are we doing here? Previous learning gets lost in similar new learning. This is why kids don't like certain things in math. When you multiply 2 times 3, what do you get for an answer?
6.
3 times 4?
12.
When you multiply 1/2 times 6, what do you get for an answer?
3.
1/4 times 12?
3.
1/2 of 8?
4.
What's supposed to happen every time you multiply? You get a bigger number? Not with fractions. I hate fractions.
I love fractions.
But you understand? You understand what's going on in a little kid's head? that what's happened is this previous learning gets kind of lost in similar new learning. No, previous learning interferes with new learning. That's the one. Previous learning interferes with new learning. Previous learning gets lost in similar new learning. What that one's all about is that I'm learning something new, and it's similar to what I've already known. So the stuff I knew before kind of gets lost in this new information as I'm kind of putting them all together. I'm pouring it all in the same pot, and it gets confusing. Resist interference by learning to focus your attention. Minimize interference by comparing and contrasting. And of course, with fractions, you probably have to give them some things to do. If I have 3 apples, no, if I have 6 apples, and 1/2 of them would be, like if I have 6 apples and I have 2 piles of 6 apples, that's 12 apples total. If I have 6 apples and I take 1/2 of them, of is times, then I've only taken 3 of them. So I end up with a smaller amount when I'm multiplying with fractions. And that's where you say, I just need to draw some pictures, have them touch some things, and do some stuff with it to see how it works. And I'm glad you like fractions, but a lot of kids don't and won't and have trouble with them. And part of it has to do with how this mind stuff is working. Page 139. We learned the first primary and the last bits of information more thoroughly than the middle information. Sometimes called in some books the serial position effect. When you're presenting stuff to little kids, they learn the first part of it. When you first start, it kind of gets muddled in the middle, then they kind of learn the last part of it. So that means when you go back and review that lesson again, you probably ought to teach the middle part of it first, then the last part, and then what you taught at first toward the end. Or if you're using this stuff to study for a test, if you're studying for a test and you have 6 pages of notes, do you always start with page 1 first and go through all 6 pages of your notes? Well, if you want to avoid losing the stuff in the middle where it gets a little fuzzy, then you start out with pages 1 through 6. Then the next time I study, I start out, put pages 1 and 2 in the back, and start out and study 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. Then the next time I study, I put 3 and 4 in the back, and I go 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you move stuff around so it doesn't stay in the middle. And that's good. Okay, so here's what that means for being a teacher. You're teaching kids a list of spelling words. Guess which ones they're going to mess up on most often? The ones in the middle of the list. So you can you can shuffle the list around to help them avoid getting caught with that trap, with that stuff in the middle. Automaticity. What do you do that's kind of automatic? Keyboarding?
Mm-hmm.
Reading? Anything else you do that's kind of automatic? Sometimes driving. You get someplace and realize, how did I get here? My mind was like, that's a scary thought. How do you develop automaticity? By practice, 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 practice. Page 144. Rote versus meaningful learning. What's rote learning?
Stuff you have to learn but isn't necessarily fun to. It's a guess.
Let's see, do you know? Okay. Does anyone know a Bible verse that God tells children what to do? Anyone know Ephesians 6, 1 and 2?
Children, obey your parents in the
Okay,
Lord.
can we all say that together? Children, obey your parents in the Lord. There. So now we all have it memorized. That's rote. Now, what does it mean to obey your parents? If you saw a child obeying his parents, what would you see that child doing?
Coming when called.
I could even have the students act that out, couldn't I? Matt could be the dad, and then each of you girls could be the daughter, and Matt says, and Matt tells you to do something, and your response would be,
Yes, Dad.
okay, Dad, whatever you say. You
Unless you're
girls
Hannah.
could be the mother, one of you could be the mother, and the rest of you could be the daughters, and the mother would tell the daughters to do something. You understand how you get kids to go from just rote to meaningful? Well, that would kind of be acting it out. Then how do I go from acting it out to really being meaningful? I have them go home and practice. What did you guys say when Matt told you what to do? What did you say?
Okay.
Okay, Dad. Okay, Mom. So when you get home this weekend, your assignment for that class would be, every time your parents tell you to do something, you say, okay, Mom, and you obey right away. You follow what's going on? Make it meaningful, not just rote. Now, some things it's good to memorize it because then it'll come back to you in the future, but you want to make sure you go beyond just rote to memorization. All right. What's going to happen here? I was going to do chapter 7 on Wednesday. Going to have to finish up chapter 6. Page 146. Oh, no, I'll just stop there. Stop right here. Put a marker here and be done with it. And put down Wednesday for that one. Oh.